So the team that beat the Los Angeles Clippers were the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets were the third seed last season. They finished 46-27. They lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals 4-1. And for me, I have two storylines this season for them. One of them is, when will they get their respect? And the second one is, I think this is Jamal Murray's breakout year. What other team goes to the Western Conference Finals this past year, 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, was a couple possessions away from making the Western Conference Finals, and they still get no respect? I've seen some predictions that have them as low as 6 or 5, and there are people that think this Jeremy Grant loss is going to be some huge thing. Like, if Michael Porter Jr. becomes the player that we think he can become, they'll be just fine, and he has all the tools to be a great defender. I think Denver is getting extremely disrespected. They didn't make any moves in the offseason outside of signing JaMychal Green and a player from Argentina whose name is Facundo Campasso, who had this highlight pass the other day. But, I mean, they lost Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, and Torrey Craig, which those guys are losses. But I think Denver, considering Jamal Murray is going to have that breakout season that I'm predicting him to have, they'll be just fine.
I want to say this. Oh, sorry, Jack. But
no, go.
Second. Listen, Denver. I'm actually really excited because I wanted Michael Porter Jr. in Chicago. I raved about it a lot. I wanted him to come to Chicago. I wanted us to pick him. We didn't pick him. I didn't care about the back problems. I said, get this guy. He's going to be special. And then I tweeted, I think, when he first played, I said he's going to be better than Ben Simmons. I tweeted that. It was a wild take at the time, but I felt that in my heart. This guy is a stud. This guy is going to ball out. He can definitely be a superstar in this league. He has the tools. He has the talent. He has the size for it if he just stays healthy. Now, the losses of Torrey Craig and Jeremy Grant, they're going to be big losses just because defensively those were their guys. Torrey Craig was the perimeter stopper. He was the guy you put. But I think this team found their identity in the bubble where they realized we're all offensive firepower. Defense we need, but I feel like we can score with the best of them. And if Jamal Murray makes that leap, that continues that leap like he was doing in the bubble, he continues and comes in this year and plays like an all-star point guard. You get Michael Porter Jr., who's starting to play like an all-star. The Joker's going to do what the Joker does. But I feel like if he comes this year in, like he doesn't come in every year all fat and whatnot, he's coming in healthy and ready to go. This team, that big three is going to be great in the long run. Not to mention getting Bobo to play. That's going to be a pretty exciting thing. And plus, they didn't have a bad job. I feel like R.J. Hampton is going to be really good. He's a project right now, but he's going to be really good. Gary Harris, who dealt with a lot of injuries last year, I feel like he's going to come back. He's still a great defender. He's going to come back and be able to hit his shot again. And then you got Paul Millsap, the leadership, the wisdom, the old gratuity. Like, he's still there. He's still going to offer up some stuff. PJ Dozier, he was a good piece coming off that bench. He's a solid point guard, can play D. So this team still has the guys. They still have that core that came back from 3-1 deficits. So they still got those guys. So I feel like they're still going to be rolling, still going to be good. And I feel like with the leaps from Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. is going to be key leaps in this team's ascension to the top elite teams in the league. And if those two can make, because I feel like the Joker, he's on superstar level. He's a top 10 player in this league. So you get Jamal Murray and the Michael Porter Jr. to the top 20s, top 25s, even top 15s. And you got a special trio that can really make some noise in the West. A point guard, a wing, and a center. So I like this team going forward. And I think they'll be a great team in the West, probably a top 3 seed.
Yeah, and to speak to what Joel said originally, like, I think that this team has now shifted from being like the lovable losers that everybody just kind of said, well, they're not as talented to hang with the top dogs of the Western Conference, but they're always there hanging around. Now, after their bubble performance, they're going to have those expectations hanging around them, and they have to live up to them. And I think the keys for that, like Riv said, are going to be the development or the continuing development of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. If you can get 70 games out of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. like you did in the bubble, they are one of the best teams in basketball, and there's no question in my mind about that. But that's a big if. And then also defensively, I think they lost a little bit with losing Jeremy Grant, losing Mason Plumlee. But Mike Malone did a great job in the bubble with his experimental defenses. He ran a lot of zone, especially against the Clippers. And I like the thought of Bol being out there, as much as people like to joke about him. Like, he made a solid impact in the bubble. And I would not mind seeing him in some experimental defenses over the course of the season. And when you think about it, they can run a lineup that nobody else has, where you run something like Jamal Murray at the 1, and then you go Michael Porter Jr. at the 2, Bol at the 3, Millsap at the 4, and Jokic at the 5, and you have the opposite of a death lineup. You have 4 guys out there that are bigger than anybody else on the opposing team, and that could be the way, you know, they mess with teams like the Warriors did with their small ball death lineup. So they have a lot of different options, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, especially, I think, Jamal Murray and what he does this season. He's lined up for a chance at being a top 4 point guard in the league this season after what he did in the bubble last year. And if he does that, they're one of the best teams in the league.
That death lineup that you mentioned, it sounds like a nightmare lineup, but not in the sense that you're thinking about it. I think it sounds like a nightmare lineup in terms of I would not want to run out that lineup at all. Bol at the 3, the defense sounds abysmal with
abysmal.
Jamal Murray, Porter Jr., Bol, and Jokic on the court at the same time. I think that defense sounds pretty bad.
In his zone.
Yes.
Bol can play defense. And he's long, he's athletic.
I don't like it, but they did lose Mason Plumlee, which does open up the door for Bol to get minutes. They also drafted Zeke Naji. He's an okay player. He's a rookie, so we're not expecting much of him. But I think they're running it back. Jamal Murray at the 1, Gary Harris at the 2, Porter Jr. at the 3, Millsap at the 4, and Jokic at the 5. I think that's the lineup they're going to run out with. And then their bench players can be guys like Monte Morris, Will Barton, who was hurt last year in the bowl. He didn't even play in the playoffs. JaMychal Green can step out and shoot threes. Dozier. And I think a guy that nobody's mentioning is the guy they signed that Houston cut, Isaiah Hartenstein. He's a good player. I think he's a good player. He can step out and hit threes as well. He's a stretch big, and I think he can be pretty solid.
Yeah, and Hartenstein didn't get to play in Houston because they don't believe in centers. So maybe a little bit of a reincarnation here in Denver. And you mentioned Will Barton, I think, will be one of the biggest key comebacks for them because, like you mentioned, they didn't even have him in the bubble this year, and he was one of their bigger offensive options throughout the regular season. So adding him will be a big plus for this team.
I think we're forgetting Monte Morris and the impact he had. He's one of the best backup point guards in the league, and I think the way he plays the game, his motion offense, the way he can just control the game coming off the bench when Jamal Murray's out is pretty phenomenal. So I like this team going for it, but I like this team going for it. I think coming back from 3-1 twice put a lot of confidence in these young guys, and I think that's the best thing. I think Mike Malone is on the rise to being one of the best coaches in the league, and now you have a 3-headed dragon where you can definitely take advantage, build the solid pieces around them, and definitely make a run. Now I got them finishing as a 2-3 seed. Lowest would be 5. The West is so dangerous that even at a 5 seed, it could be 4 great teams in front of you. So that's the lowest. I got them as a 5, but the highest is 2-3.
The projected seeding I have the Nuggets at, I'm going to give them the damn respect. All right? They're finishing as the 2nd seed in the Western Conference. I can see them as high as 1, and I can also see them as low as 5. But
you just said the same thing and then said I didn't give them respect.
No, I said as low. I think that's the lowest they'll finish.
I said the same thing.
But what seed did you have them finishing at?
2.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, all right. I have them at 2 as well. I'm going to give them their damn respect, all right? All right, River Brown? Well, we're going to give the Nuggets their damn respect.
I should take that line because I'm actually putting them at the 1 seed. I think they're going to finish 1 just because I think the Lakers are going to rest their guys, and the Nuggets have been perennially a very good regular season team. I love Mike Malone as a head coach, so I have them finishing 1. I could see them finishing as low as, like you guys said, 5, and that's no knock on them. It's just the Western Conference has some incredible teams.
Yeah, so if they don't finish that high, then all of us are wrong together because we're all basically have the same take.
We're all in this together.